Good afternoon. I just want to go through a job I attended this morning, and it highlights the problems you get as a locksmith and how you have to think sometimes, because the most straightforward way of doing things is maybe not the best for the client. So I attended a flower shop this morning. The owners were outside of the property. They couldn't get in. They did have their keys, and when they put the keys into the keyway here and turned the lock were lifting the levers, but it wasn't retracting the bolt. That's going to be because the part of that bolt that engaged with the key had sheared away somehow, probably through too much tension. Over time it can happen. On top of that as well, it had jammed behind the curtain of the lock, which means you can only take that so far anyway. But regardless whether it jammed or not, you could turn that key all day and you weren't going to open the door. And the same happens if you try to pick the lock. So there's a couple of options here. You're going into the realms now of destructive entry. We're on the outside of the door and it's an inward swinging door. So you could drill for the bolt and you could draw the bolt back in that respect. But the problem you have there is that you are leaving I would say a 6 to 8 millimeter hole in the doorway, which is what you really don't want, and it's what the client doesn't really want, and you have to respect the property of the client. The other way of doing it, and the way I went for, was to go around the back of the property and get to the shop from the back, which was great in this case because it's part of a terrace load of shops and they never had the keys. So that was a lot picking exercise. But before I go into the second part of the video, I just want to show you what I mean by, if I open this, you'll see that the main parts of a mortice deadlock. You've got the bolt here, you've got the bolt stump, you've got the levers, the curtain, and this here, which is sheared away from the main part of the bolt. This is the piece what engages with the key. So what you have essentially, you put the key in, turn it, and engage with that broken part there, and it pulls that bolt back and the door's unlocked. So to do this non-destructively, I had to get to the inside of the shop, which I did, and the reason for that is because I took the key with me, put the key into the lock, turned it to the 12 o'clock position, which raises all the 5 levers into the right place. It's roughly 12 o'clock. Once that is done, it allows that bolt stump to go through the levers, through the gates of the levers. All I did then, when I got to the 12 o'clock position, is with this screwdriver started to push this back through the levers, through the mortice lock, through the gate, the bolt stump, through the gates, and therefore unlocking the door in a non-destructive manner. Very wet day this morning. It was chucking it down this morning, as the second part will show you, but that's essentially what happened. That's what you can come across. It's also easy to drill through somebody's door, but why should you do that just because it's easier when there's other ways of doing stuff? So yeah, interesting day, as the second part of this video will show.